Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's first concurrent session. This session will feature two 45-minute presentations and discussions. The first one will be presented by Akua, Quao, international students, the forgotten majority. If I could kindly ask everybody to please silence their phones. And I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the Okanagan Nation and its peoples and customs in whose territory we're gathered today. And I'll quickly introduce Akua, and she'll begin her presentation. Akua is a tutor in health promotion with over 20 years of broadcasting experience. Her track record includes developing various health promotion projects, including courses. As a producer of NHS-funded Health Africa and Student University Health Radio programs, Akua was runner-up for an Award of Excellence in Communications and Media for Ghana Professional Awards. She is a co-author of health promotion material, which won the British Medical Association Patient Information Award. Welcome, Akua, and thank you.
Thank you. Raise your hand if you would like your college or university to be number one in terms of being a health promoting university for international students. Raise your hand. Good. And raise your hand if not only you would like your university or college to be number one, but also to be able to generate over $100,000 of revenue as a direct result. Sure, that's good. Okay. Okay, so maybe you're here today because your college or university has enrolled a significant number of students at the beginning of a particular academic program. And maybe at the beginning of the academic program, you had your full quota of university international students. But sort of now, as you're coming 2 or 3 years to the end of that particular program, you've lost about a third of your students, international students. If not a third, maybe they're dwindling in terms of their performance. Maybe you're here because you're concerned, because you spent a significant amount of your marketing budget on attracting these students, and now they are disappearing. And you could be asking yourself, where did we go wrong? It's a common question. Maybe you're a student and you're also asking yourself, well, what can a health promoting college or university offer me? I don't know, can they really understand me? Do they understand me? You may be asking yourself that question. I'd like you to think for a moment. Imagine your retention rates being 99.9% for international students. Imagine your college or university also being a health promoting university that is particularly outstanding. You talk to your friends and your friends are talking about how they're stressed out at their college or university, how they're not being supported, but you can say, no, I'm being very well supported at mine. Doesn't it sound good? Yes or no? Good. So that's why I'm here today, really, is to talk to you about international students. I call them the forgotten majority, and it's very important that we look at their fulfillment and retention. If I can get this to move. Okay. All right, so our learning outcomes are that we are going to learn about the key issues that affect international students. Some of their issues are not really talked about. Some of them appear to be silent because they don't talk about them. But if you talk to enough international students, you'll find that there's commonalities. Whether it's an international student from someone who was an international student in Britain maybe 40, 50 years ago, or an international student today in London, it's the same sort of problems. We're also going to gain some practical ideas on how to assist these students. So international students, who are they? They're international. They cross borders. Yeah, so that's basically the students I'm talking about, the ones that cross borders to study. They take a big leap of faith. They come to our colleges, our universities, really with high expectations. And sometimes something goes wrong. Now we know that any major change in one's living circumstances or situation causes stress. How many people here didn't just walk here? Let me say, maybe you flew to get here. Raise your hand. I did. Quite a few of you. Anybody driving? Anybody busseted? Okay, so anybody use the train? What do you call it here? We call it the tube. So, in London, sorry. Okay, so, but basically we all took a step of a leap of faith to get here. Yes or no? Yeah? And if I ask you a question in terms of, you know, coming here, was it stressful for you getting here? A bit stressful? Yes, no? For me it was. When I got to Vancouver, I came from London and my flight was late coming in from London, and so the connecting flight to get me here, I missed it and I had to stay in the airport for about 5 hours. So it was a bit stressful. By the time I got to WestJet, I said to the guy, please, can I just get onto the aeroplane because I really want to sleep now, I'm tired. It's a good job, right, that they have the intercom, because essentially I fell asleep on the flight. And you know, the announcement came and thank goodness I woke up, but it was a stress. Yes? So when we're talking about international students, they go through quite a significant amount of stress. I would say slightly more so than national students. Let's look at the World Health Organization definition for mental health. Mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which every individual, it says every individual, realizes his or her own potential. So that's you and me, our own potential. And can cope with the normal stresses of life and can work productively and fruitfully. And I'd like you to really focus on that, to work productively and fruitfully. So if we're not able to be productive, we're not able to be fruitful, something is wrong. Something is seriously wrong. And then it goes on to say, and is able to make a contribution to her or his community. So I've already said that our students, international students, are faced with some major stresses, but not only are they major stresses, but the thing is, it affects them so much that they're not able to be productive anymore. They're not able to be fruitful anymore. You know, a bird that doesn't sing isn't a bird anymore. Yeah, there's something not right. And that's sometimes what happens. You meet international students and sometimes they've lost their song. Why study abroad? Are there any international students here? Yes? Okay, so say why you're studying here. Why did you pick Canada?
Oh, I wanted an international experience.
You wanted an international experience. Excellent. Where are you coming from?
I'm from Ghana.
From Ghana. Okay. I'm from Ghana as well. Okay. Why did you come here?
I want an international experience plus better research opportunities here.
Right. Better research opportunities, international experience. Anybody else? I spoke to some other students as well. Some said they wanted to come here or they wanted to go overseas because there were better job prospects. When they go back to their country of origin and they say they studied maybe in Canada, in the UK, Germany, wherever, they have more doors are open to them. So their progression route is very important to them. That's why they've invested heavily in coming here. Some of them as well, it's because it's a family tradition that the family, they study outside of the country when it comes to higher education. Or for some of them, it's just, you know, the fact that, you know, they want that international experience. They want to be able to be, if you like, a bit more progressive. And if you look at it, some of the great leaders that have come out of different parts of the world have come abroad to study. I can think of Kwame Nkrumah, the late Kwame Nkrumah, who was a formidable president of Ghana, and he studied in the United Kingdom. So, you know, there are so many benefits of studying abroad. It really does open our perspective. So these students take a big leap of faith. Now I've got up there survival. Why survival? I would like to read to you just a little bit about an article. It's in my bibliography about a woman from Nepal, a Nepalese student in Britain. And she basically said she's poor, isolated, and far away from home. Universities are eager to accept our fees, but they do nothing. Are they doing enough to support young people like me who come far away from home to study? Unfortunately, that theme, you hear it too many times. I've heard it too many times from international students who are sometimes very disgruntled, very unhappy because of what they've come and faced. Often they're not prepared for it. So in this case, like this young woman, she's just surviving. It's survival. That's all it is. You know, it's making ends meet. So there's emotional trauma, there's financial problems, and we'll go into the finance a bit later on. So survival. If you and I think, if we had to really try and fight for our food, we heard about food this morning, you know, but if we had to really go far away to find food, we'd be now in survival mode. We'd be now struggling. And some of these students, international students I'm referring to, are the ones that are struggling. I'm talking about the students that I've come across who, for one reason or the other, are in a situation where they now don't have enough funds to buy more than a can of baked beans to eat. If you know, if you eat baked beans here, I don't know, yes? They don't have enough money. I'm talking about students who we have sometimes in some houses in Britain, we have electric meters, you put money in it to get the light working. They don't have money to put in it because they've run out of funds. I'm talking about students who can't walk to college or university purely and simply because it's too far away. They've had to move far away to kind of make ends meet, and so therefore they are now stuck and staying at home, not able to attend class, and then it spirals out of control. So survival. The other one is time. Time becomes an issue. Maybe, possibly you'll find that some of these students are mature students, quite a significant number are mature. And so time, they don't feel time is on their side. They don't have time. You know, they're looking at time in terms of, I may be 20-something, 30-something, and I need to complete this course. Some of them are married. That presents a challenge. Time in terms of coming from a country where it's not as fast-paced. I mean, I came here to Kelowna, and to me, this place is just so surreal. I took a picture of it, and I sent it home. This is my back garden now. Yeah, it's lovely. Whereas where I come from in London, it's like a pressure cooker. I'm not in a hurry to go back. So when the mayor said, your mayor said, oh, you know, we'd love to have you here as a resident, I honestly feel like I could take him up on that, you know. So in all honesty, you know, it's beautiful here. It's so peaceful, it's so calm. But if you come from a background that is very, very much like that, and then you come to a pressure cooker like London, where I live, it's like, wow. Everybody's on the go. We live on like skates. We are moving so fast. Yeah. In fact, I remember when I visited Ghana for the very first time. I remember years ago they said, "My God, she walks so fast," because I was just going so quick, like I was in Britain. But they don't walk that fast there. Do you see what I mean? So when you come to a different environment, it becomes an issue. So time. So maybe this is why we have problems with people getting to places on time, because the concept of time is very different. Also time in terms of managing their time. If you come from a background where things are done for you, mum cooks for you, cleans for you, you know, you don't have to cook or clean nothing. And then now you live as an independent international student. You've got to find the laundrette, you've got to find change to put in the machine, you've got to find washing powder, you've got to go shopping, you've got to iron your clothes, you've got to cook your meals, you've got to attend class. Oh my God, I've got homework to do, I've got assignments to write, I've got a project to write. It just gets too much. So, where does this leave our students? They are fighting with time. The other one is relationships. Relationship with their lecturers. How do they relate to their lecturers? You know, you're now coming into a different culture, a different environment. How do you relate to different people? Do you fit in or not fit in? I was reading about some students, Chinese students in the United States of America, and they were talking about how unhappy they were because people were talking about their accents and, you know, how they just felt that they couldn't really settle and integrate. So they weren't able to build relationships. So when you have that happen, then of course one gets isolated, yeah? And we start to, you know, find that no man is an island on his own. We all need people, we all need to connect with somebody. So if someone finds themselves in that situation, it's a can of worms opening up. Economics. Economics is a big one. When I say economics, what do I mean by economics? Simple, money. You know, we all know that money makes the world go round. It's money that brought us here. It's money that's made this conference happen. It's money that's made us have all these resources. Now, if you've got students who are funding themselves, now you'll find that 65% of them self-fund or depend on money from their family. That's 65% of international students. So it's a lot of money. And then some students, I can specifically relate this to African students, they also, when they have some money, they make money from work, they send money back to their country of origin to support their family. So there are challenges with money because you've got the foreign exchange. When it fluctuates, it presents a challenge because not money is coming in, if there's anything coming in apart from what you left home with. Knowing how to manage a budget. So, you know, we talk about budgeting in Western countries, but in a lot of developing countries, they don't talk about budgeting. You use your money as it is, as you need to use it. The concept of a budget doesn't really exist. But here, you've got to deal with, how do I make this go here? I've got to pay rates. I don't know what your equivalent is of rates, but it's like a tax that you have to pay where you live, wherever you live. You know, you've got certain bills that you have to just pay, whether you like it or not. Yeah, so in England we say we're taxed to death, but that's a problem. Yeah, so money becomes tighter and tighter. So you'll find a student who started the beginning of the academic year with maybe a lot of money, and then you find that the money starts to dwindle. So they started living in the halls of residence and they have to move out because they can't afford it. They have to find somewhere else to live. Does it sound familiar? Yeah? So economics is a very big challenge. Sadness. Think for a moment of when you've been sad. What has made you sad? Yeah, so we're talking about people who have left home, their family, their loved ones. Even though there's an excitement when you're young that you can't wait to leave home. I'm not talking about that because when when it gets to a certain time, then after that you're like, I kind of miss home now. Yeah, so missing home food. I love fish and chips, so I'm missing my fish and chips. Yes, so it's like that. What is it? They're missing home, and if they've got problems in terms of having good relationships with other people, the sadness is even more so prominent. Then the final one here to look at is studies. They've got to deal with studying, the reality of studying, this whole thing called study skills, understanding how to study in a different language. Even if English is spoken in that country where they come from, you find that because of accents, it changes things slightly. Now I've got a British accent, so some people may not fully understand me. Likewise, when I came here, there were some Canadians, when they were speaking, I had to look very carefully because I couldn't understand and I had to ask them to repeat themselves. So forgive me if I'm going too fast, you can ask me to repeat myself. But really, it's true, accents present a challenge, yeah? So you've got accents, your teacher, how do you manage your time? Whether you're at the right level of writing English, how people write and how people speak is different. So these are all the things that international students have to deal with. And sometimes it's overlooked, I think, by the students themselves until it becomes a crisis. And sometimes it's overlooked by the team that's there to work with them to achieve their success. So what we come away with is this stress. So it literally is, for them, it's about surviving. It's about time. It's about their relationships. It's about economics. It's about being sad or coping with sadness. And it is about studies. So if we look at this circular motion, we can see at the top there's accommodation. Accommodation is always a problem for students for the various reasons I've mentioned, primarily finance. Sometimes they're living with people they don't like, they don't get on with, they don't understand. Employment issues. Now, in Britain, international students are restricted. They're not able to work a certain amount of hours. They cannot work. So there's a challenge because if you are looking for money to come from home, as it were, then you're stuck. And then they often are not able to say that they're not managing. They're not able to tell the people back home that they can't cope because they don't want to return. Because if you can imagine the embarrassment one would feel of having to go back empty-handed. Because they came here, a lot was invested in them. So they need to find a way to survive. And this is where you find people getting involved in sort of illegal activities out of desperation. Then there's visas, visa challenges, visa controls. I'll go on to that a bit later on. And then also we've got integration, which we've spoken about, and then language. So all of that going on with your study. Now, if you're a national student, a home student, you have maybe one or two of those things to deal with. You've got accommodation, finance to deal with, maybe the employment, but you haven't got, you know, the visa problem. You haven't got those other issues, which are a big nightmare for a lot of students. So if we look at sort of the trend with international students, we know that there's more and more international students. The rate in which students are crossing borders is increased significantly. So from 2003, 2 million to now 5 million plus international students around the world. So, you know, the time is really coming to a point where we have to think really strategically about these students. They contribute over $60 billion to the global economy. So it's quite a significant amount of money. Yeah? So if the international students weren't allowed to come into Canada anymore, that would have a huge impact on the economy. The same in Britain, the same in Germany. Yeah? So the other countries, top countries, Australia, where, you know, they're destinations for international students. So your income is really tied to these students. So as I said, time, and we heard at the conference today about time for change, time for action. It's time for us to have a strategic approach to how we respond to international students. We have to be very, very strategic, because otherwise we're going to lose the students, we will lose the revenue, we'll lose the reputation. I just want to draw you to the Ottawa Charter and the bit where it says health promotion is the process of enabling people to increase control over and to improve their health. Yeah, so why do I say that? It's really important. You know, as an institution, as a college or a university, you do have a key role to play in helping your students to improve their health and well-being. You can have a significant role to play, as we heard Mark talk about this morning. So why are we not doing it consistently? It's not consistent, and it needs to be consistent for our international students because they are crying out. There are various reports, and again it's in the bibliography, there's various reports of students who are really struggling. I'm talking about with mental health challenges. Why? Because they can't talk about it, because there's a stigma attached to it. There's a stigma attached to having a nervous breakdown. There's a stigma attached to not being able to cope with your studies. So they're not going to talk about it until it becomes a crisis. Within the Ottawa Charter, we're told that these things are prerequisites for health, so they're essential for health. We can't do without them. We can't do without peace. So if you imagine that student doesn't have peace of mind because they're thinking about money, are their fees going to be paid? Remember, these students their fees are double national student fees. Like in Britain, they're paying something like around £12,000, about £9,000 to £12,000 international students per year. It's a lot of money. So if you're thinking about, are my fees going to be paid? Shelter, where am I going to sleep? You know, the landlord has said they're going to throw us out. I know somebody who recently spoke to me. It's a couple, and unfortunately he wasn't able to pay the rent, and the rent kind of didn't talk to nobody about it until it became a major crisis. The landlord said, get out next week, because the rent had gone sort of like 3 or 4 months overdue, and it was now, you know, you guys are going to go on the street. This is an international student. Why did he leave it so late? He didn't want to talk to anybody. He just felt that he'd be able to handle it. Like most of us would think, we'll be able to handle it, but didn't realize it was going too far. Education, We've already heard about how education plays a big role in terms of our life expectancy. Yeah, they always say what you don't know will be your master. It's important that we have that knowledge. Food, good food, the right food. Yeah, now we have so much to choose. Income or no income, but income is essential for our health. A stable ecosystem, sustainable resources, and a social justice and equality. So these things are really important, and that's why it's here, that without these things we cannot have sound health. And so that's why I'd like us to really think about our international students in a different way. So a way forward, because we need to really not just think about them, but do something that's going to make a significant difference. And one of the things that I really would like to see is that we get to a place where, you know, international students can go back to their country of origin and promote, let's say, the University of British Columbia. They can go back and promote that country, that university. Why would you promote that university? Say how great it was. It wasn't just it was a nice feel. It wasn't just the lecturers were brilliant, but they really educated me on my health and well-being. You know, I'm a better person as a result of that. So that is what I'm proposing. So if you don't want your students to drop out, your international students to drop out at a fast rate, then you need to be thinking about this thing. Otherwise, you will lose a lot of students. With it, your students will come to you. They will open up to you. What is it I'm talking about? It's communication. Now you may ask yourself, what do you mean by communication? We all communicate. Yes, we all do communicate. But there's different levels of communication. And if we really want to have an impact on our students and want them to really feel welcome and to really feel that they're able to come to us, then we need to communicate on their level. I think one of the things Mark said is about the projects, about the Ps, he said, start with where they're at. It's very important. So, you know, if you're not sure about understanding, you don't understand each other, it's important to say, I'm not sure, I don't understand. So communication is key. When I say communication, I'm talking about language. It could be verbal, non-verbal. All of these things matter. Now, you know, as I said, I'm from Ghanaian parentage, and I know that as part of Ghanaian culture, you don't look people in the eye. You don't. It's not the done thing. You don't, you know, stare. When I say stare, you know, you make eye contact. Yes, it's a Western thing, make eye contact. We don't make eye contact. So when I started to make eye contact, I was told, you're being a bit rude. What's the matter? Yeah? But it was just, I learned about communicating that way now. So do you see what I mean? Yeah, it's communication, but it's different styles of communication. And we need to understand all these things. I want you to have a look at this. Some of you may have seen it before. And I want to ask you, what do you see? Who can see the old woman? Yeah? Did anybody see the young woman? Does anybody see nothing but just a heap? Because when I first looked at it, it just looked like a heap. I couldn't see anything in it. Yeah? But it's really, the point is, we all see things differently. There's an old woman in there, yeah, and she's over there. That's her nose, her mouth. And there's a young woman, and the young woman is that side. So if you look at it again, those that couldn't see the old woman, can you see her now? Those that couldn't see the young woman, can you see her now? Yes? Yes or no? You can't see. Just you have a look and you'll get it, yeah? But we all see things differently. So our perspective is different. So therefore, I might say, I've forgotten your name, sorry. Adrian said to me, she welcomed me when I came in, and she, just basically made me feel comfortable. Now she did what she knows to do, and she spoke to me. But I could have, if I didn't fully understand what she said, I could have said, well, she didn't really do anything. But she's done it. In your mind, you've done it. Do you see what I mean? But I've misinterpreted it. So communication, there's always issues with communication. So we need to look at how we communicate with our students. This next thing is very important in terms of, it's like building a bridge between each other. building a bridge. So if I share with you an experience I had, one day I was in class and we'd done an exercise on confidentiality, and one of my students said to me, "Miss Akua, please, can I see you after class?" I said, "No problem." So after class, she came, sat down, and she sat down. Well, you can talk. "Miss, I don't know where to start. Miss, I don't really know where to start. Miss, I don't know where to start." And she started crying. I said, "Talk, what's the matter?" "Miss, my in-laws are giving me hell. My husband has left me with these kids, my little kids. I can't cope, miss. I cannot cope. I just don't know what to do. I can't cope." And she started crying. Honestly, I felt tears coming down as well, because I was so moved by her, what was going on. And then, she spoke about how the in-laws are so horrible to me. They are treating me like rubbish. They keep talking about me. They want to separate me and my husband, and now they've done it, and he's run back to Austria, and now I'm on my own with the children, and I'm having to go to college, and I'm having to go to work. At the end of it, she said to me, "Miss, thanks for listening to me. I feel like a weight has come off my shoulders." Do you know, it really struck me, because I thought to myself, had I not been able to say to her, "Yes, let's talk," I don't know what she would have done. Would she have jumped off a roof? Would she have done something, something quite drastic? Because she was desperate. How busy are we? How busy have you been? How rushed have you been to not notice or to not be available to listen to your students? This was an international student. So the thing I'm talking about is interdependence. Interdependence is very important because it is a mutual thing. We agree that we can work together. So as a student, it's your responsibility to communicate with your teacher. It's your responsibility to, make that connection. And as a tutor or a teacher, it's your responsibility to connect with your students. Interdependence and interdependent relationships are key, because in university and in colleges, often we are told, be independent. Yes, it's good to be an independent learner, but I think there's a place for interdependence. The next thing is training. Training is important because it will empower students with the key skills and knowledge that they need. So we've already heard about the power of education. So what I'm saying here is that we need to look at our communication, interdependent skills, and training for these students. Sustainable, ongoing training. Because the training will make a big difference to them. So if you have a look at this, in the middle I've put adaptation training, and that training is training that should take place from when students start the course, they enroll. And they know that they have to go on this training. Now the key thing about this training is that the training is run by international students, experienced international students, who have been international students in that country or that college for at least 18 months plus. So they will be trained to train the new students. Focus on communication and language, all the issues around understanding all the quirky ways we all communicate, understanding the language difference. Like for example, you write English different in North America to how we write English in England. These sort of things are different. And interdependence, why the students need to have that mindset that yes, reach out and talk. Whether it's talk to the group of international students, whether it's talk to the lecturers, whoever. They need to have that space. They need to know that that space is there for them. Healthy living, because I've unfortunately come across a lot of students, and it's a big generalization, but I've come across a lot of international students who their eating habits, I would say, are questionable if we're talking about healthy living. Yes, so for example, because they like food that is done from their country of origin, so they try to modify it in the Western climate, and it's slightly more toxic, I would put it that way. Yeah? Okay. So to use an example, for example, we have something in Ghana, it's called fufu, which is like pounded yam. Yes? It's yam that's pounded. Now that's the healthy version. Okay, but if you come to Britain now and you're having mashed potato, and I'm not talking about mashed potato, I'm talking about processed, refined potato mixed with something, it's not good for you. Yeah? So just, you know, so it's things, healthy living, and things around food, things around, you know, stress, understanding the concept of stress and stress management, just everything about your health and well-being as a student. And then the financial and legal. Financial and legal, why? Because it's a big thing. Yes, without the finance, we've already said, students can't make ends meet. Legal, because I'll share a story with you. I used to share a flat with a student who was from Gambia, and we lived together with some other students, but it was our exam, coming up to exam week. And one particular morning, maybe around 5 a.m., there was a loud bang at the door. It was bang, 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 bang. I've never heard anything like that in my life before. It was bang, 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 bang. Open the door, it's the police. Open the door. Open the door, it's the police. Open the door. I said, what is this? Open the door. She came running out. What is it? What is it? Immigration. Immigration? We're looking for Georgette. And Georgette? Georgette, what have you done? We are immigration officers. We've had a report that you are an illegal immigrant. But I'm not an illegal immigrant. That's my friend crying out. I'm not an illegal immigrant. Where's your passport? My passport is with the Home Office. It's with the Home Office. I'm not an illegal immigrant. Don't take me away. Oh my goodness. So what's going to happen now? Find the papers. The policeman was so stunned. Find the papers. Find the papers to prove that you are not an illegal immigrant. I'll never forget the clutter in her wardrobe as she was looking for this little receipt that she had got from the Home Office to prove that they had her passport. She couldn't find it. So they took her away in her nightie, took her away. Where are you taking her? We don't know. We're taking her to a police station, and if we don't get the details, she'll be on the next plane back to Gambia within 24 hours. So I knew she had an aunt. I phoned her aunt. I said, Aunt, this is what's happened to Georgette. Police have taken her. They say they've had a report she's an illegal immigrant. She's in the police station. Aunt got her a solicitor. Everything was sorted out. And then she called me. Georgette called me and said, please, can you come and pick me up? Take me home. Bring me home. Went to collect her, and there was a police officer there that said to her, young lady, I'm going to warn you. Be very careful. Somebody doesn't like you. Somebody doesn't like you. And we left. And you know, Georgette had to take her exam the next day. And she took her exam and failed. And she had a nervous breakdown. You know, so the story is that, you know, these things that we can take for granted that our students are going through are real. And it does have a knock-on effect long-term on their health and well-being. So there is evidence that when we empower, we use the empowerment model, it works. But what we need is more evidence to link it with health promotion activity and higher education. We need a lot more research around that. So I would propose that we have a robust evaluation of a training system where students, international students, are trained to be the trainers so that they can help the students that are coming in to settle down. So the final thing that I want to say is for you to make a choice. Now, there's not a very pleasant face up there. Make a choice. The choice is, does it look welcoming? Does she look welcoming? Does she? Who thinks she looks welcoming? Put your hand up if you think she does. Okay, one person. Okay. Ah, you figured it out. You're absolutely correct. Yes, that's the correct way she's supposed to be. Yes. So basically, what, you know, how do we want to be seen? Do we want to be seen as a welcoming place, a welcoming face, or do we want to be seen as a college or university that is not welcoming and not able to embrace our students? So that's where I would rest my case and say thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Akua, for your
Thank you.
presentation this morning. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Sorry, I got too late.
Okay.
But, and I think I missed most of the presentation, but I'd like to, what's the strategy for empowerment do you use?
Okay, so it's working from a bottom-up approach, if you like. It's working with the people. It's at what we call grassroots level. So the students are a resource. They know everything they're going through themselves. So it's to, if you like, empower the students with the right information and with the right partners. So partners like you would need, there are agencies that specifically work with overseas students in different countries. There are also things like the embassies, the banks, and all the gyms, everything. It's a collective response where the students are equipped with the right knowledge, up-to-date information, and they become trainers, and they train the other students who are new to get an understanding. It should be a long-term thing so that they get used to the fact that, you know, if you got your assignment back today and maybe you got a poor grade on it, don't worry, it's part of the process. Yeah, so it's, you know, so it's equipping them with the knowledge and skills they need. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
all right. Yeah.
I think it's really important to educate the students. Do you have any examples of successful models of educating the faculty and staff and not putting the burden entirely on international students to adapt to our way of living and being more open to understanding and accepting the way they wish to live here in a different place?
I think I haven't found any good models, but what I would say is that I do believe that the students and the lecturers or the college, it's a partnership, and it works two ways. I think if the students are well informed, like for example this student who didn't know the significance of holding that little receipt, yeah, put her in a lot of trouble. You know, things like that, if they understood things like that, that information would make a difference. And the same way, if the college was able to, you know, it came across as if the college cared, they could go to the college and tell them, this is my problem, my passport still hasn't come back yet. Is there anything you can do to help speed up the process? So I think the college has got a role to play, but I think the students is where we need to start with first, because they lack so much knowledge, or their knowledge base is so different. Okay, thanks. Okay.
Sorry. What steps do you think can be taken to get international students involved in the community, in the university community or in the residential community, so that they have like a support system for themselves, or they can build a network?
I think that, you know, I would like to think that they get involved with everything that's going on in the university, not really to try and segregate them as just international students. That training I'm talking about is just specifically to help them adapt to the country. So one of the things I would say is to really make an effort to be a part of everything that's going on in the college, all the activities. Because what I've seen is that sometimes you find in some colleges that students tend to group together based on one thing, and then they become isolated, you know, not deliberately, but they isolate themselves because they don't know what's going on in the wider network. So I think they should basically get involved with everything.
Sorry, I just have a follow-up. I also find that a lot of international students are hesitant to get involved because it's so unfamiliar, and that's why they end up being alienated most of the time. So I'm not sure what's the best strategy.
Okay, so that's where I was talking about the training, because that would help them to understand that, you know, you will settle. If you knew that this is what I went through, then you'll know that it's normal, but just go through the process and you'll be fine. That's what I would say.
So we have time for 2 more questions.
Okay. Yeah.
This isn't a question, but it's something I learned recently. A very credible study of Canadian international students was done by University of British Columbia. But this was the stat that really hit home. 58% of international students said that they didn't have one Canadian friend for a full year.
Yes.
Think about that on adapting and,
yes,
you know, in integrating.
Yeah. That's quite high, very, very high. It's the same thing in the US as well with the Chinese students, and they're dropping out because they don't feel that they're able to integrate. Yeah, sorry, the lady at the back was asking a question as well.
I'm afraid I didn't have that problem. I was one of the very first Indians on campus at UBC way back in the 60s. And there might have been 6 Indians on campus at that time. There were 38,000 students, but we fortunately had an international house, and that was when a lot of colonies, British colonies, were sending their students overseas, and we got a whole lot from the West Indies and the East Indies and India, and so it was quite a conglomeration. So there was quite a number of nice brown skins all around campus. But I wanted to answer your question about a model. There is a model in BC through the PHSA, which is our Provincial Health Services Authority, and it's a cultural competency program put together by one of our Aboriginal directors, Leslie Varley. So if you look on the PHSA site, that model could certainly be adjusted to fit situations, and they've had everyone from the RCMPs to administrators to teachers to programs, different faculties throughout UBC. So I think that is a very good site for people to look at, just to see what can be done to address this issue of the teacher not understanding the pupils. And especially if they're going into a foreign country in which there's completely no understanding whatsoever. So.
Thank you. And just the final thing, I know you had this lady asked the last question. Yeah, you had a question.
Oh, I was just saying, I come from Thompson Rivers University, which is just 2 hours from here. I do find actually a lot of our international students are like probably the biggest volunteers on our campus. They're really engaged, but also to what this lady was saying behind me, like we're really making an effort to interculturalize our and indigenize our curriculum. So it's a process of trying to, it's engaged in everything we do on our campus, so that faculty, staff, and students all, understand or make the effort to understand different cultures. And so that's the bigger kind of picture of how we're trying to engage
with
international students.
Yeah, that's great. And just the final thing that I wanted to ask you to take away with you is to look at what resources you have. What resources do you already have that you can use, that you're taking for granted, that is already there, that you can tap into, that can make a difference to your international students? Thank you. Okay.